everybody, Fintan here from Dams and Cloud. This week we are at the Dublin Tech Summit and I decided to stop off here with Tracy Keogh from Grow Remote, which is a really interesting company. Tracy, why don't you tell us a little bit about the organisation and yourself?
Yeah, so we're a non-profit started off in 2018 and we're the only organisation solely responsible for making remote work for profit, people and planet. So we drive systemic change, whether that's with employers transitioning over to remote, the already remote employers, and then on the other side that we bed that down in 250 local communities.
And you guys have been growing like a lot lately. Obviously, COVID has been a huge driver of that. What have you kind of seen as changes in, like, obviously growth in your numbers, but in terms of the different stuff that the activities that you guys have been doing since COVID? What, maybe give people an idea what they are.
So we started off by bringing remote employees in particular, so not freelancers or kind of contractors, but remote employees of organisations all across Ireland together in the local communities. We've seen a 200% increase in that activity, whether it's kayaking, free beers in a pub, a couple of pubs in Ireland the last Friday of every month, and different kinds of events. And we're also seeing now, even just in the last couple of months, companies on the other hand beginning to bring clarity to the market in terms of hybrid was used just universally for absolutely everything. And now we're starting to say, okay, we're remote first hybrid, we're office first hybrid, and that's bringing a lot of clarity to where, we need to provide support, and then for candidates as well, I suppose, where they can go to, because obviously not everybody wants to work remotely either.
And I think that's really important, defining remote work, and I know you guys have spoken about that before, that it's important to define what that means, because it can mean something different to the employer, to the employee, and then if we end up with that sort of disconnect, what I think remote working is, an employee applying for a job is fully remote, I can work anywhere in the world, and then suddenly it's like, no, actually it's only in Ireland or it's only in Dublin. You know, have you found, that kind of a challenge?
And that's why the clarity is so important. I think like 2018, a load of companies were talking about remote, they were greenwashing it essentially, using it for marketing. Now that's just not worth their time because it's causing challenges with talent. So remote is a spectrum that goes from nomads all the way over to 2 days in, 3 days out, right? Where we focus as one part, it is that distributed employment side. We still need to kind of define who's doing what, where, as opposed to just the conversation now, which is home versus office, which is the most boring conversation in the world, and I'm sick to death of it.
I was watching one of the talks you were involved in there, and you were kind of hosting it, and it was really interesting. One of the speakers said, I can't remember the lady's name, but I think the question that was asked was that people work more effectively in person. Obviously you disagree with that. I definitely disagree with that as well. And I think it really depends on the type of work you're doing. For me, I feel like there are reasons to go in person, but I personally get my best work done remotely. We're a fully remote team. What's your kind of take on it?
Yeah, so actually that's one of the bones of contention that we have with talent versus organisations. So even talent who look at remote jobs, and the company is remote, but they think, I have to go to a retreat twice per year. Like, I want to stay at home all the time. But if you look at the likes of what Dropbox did, they came out with a really innovative kind of remote digital first approach. Their retention rates were blown through. They lost a load of staff. When they brought back in team retreats, that increased again, right? So it is all about really culture more so than anything else. HubSpot are the leaders in this, and they say, brilliant hybrid organisation. If you tie culture to the person rather than location, it absolutely thrives. So what we're beginning to see as well, which is really important, away from opinions, I feel, I don't like it, stats.
Data.
Data. And then if it works here, what was the model behind it? If it doesn't work here, what was the model behind it? And that's kind of what we need to move forward in an informed way.
And that's it. You're trying to be that community of sharing information. Yeah. Obviously, I know, and I do want to mention, you guys have an event coming up next week, which is the Grow Remote Summit, which is on June 8th and 9th, which is in Portlaoise.
Yes, it's in Portlaoise. So 2 days of talks, 30 plus speakers, the largest remote companies from all over the world, government and talent, all coming together in one room to say, how do we make employment accessible to everybody no matter where they live? There's two barriers for everybody in access to employment. The first is your location. The second is anything that would affect you in a city centre. And I suppose, we need to shake that up and change it. And then the evening time, we've got a festival. So we've got a matchmaker. So we solve for all the issues around remote work. We've got a matchmaker, because one in 5 people used to meet their partner in the office, right? Yeah. We've got beer tasting. I don't know what social social challenge I could bring in.
We're solving something there.
Yeah, connection. And we have Barron learning. I suppose it's ways to get people together around the connect. Because it's the ecosystem is incredibly fractured.
And I think that leads into the second thing that you guys are, which a lot of people may not know, which is, I know we'll get a shot there of the map behind us. You guys are a community-led organisation.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. I first connected with you guys online, and I found a community of people on on Slack, and we were able to connect, and then I connected in person after that. So I think the community is really important.
Yeah.
How has that kind of grown over the last couple of years?
Oh, sure. In the space of our first week after our first event, we were in 80 communities where we're still in a WhatsApp group, no resources and no team. And it's kind of went along that trajectory. We need to go a little bit further now and making sure we're making quality connections across the ecosystem as well as those local events. But yeah, as I said, it's grown 200%. So
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And do you find people are more interested in the in-person connections now because they're remote? They want to go into the local community connections so they can meet up with people because they're maybe missing out on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if for Chris Hurd coming over from the conference as well, he says like, your friend group is more than who HR picks for you to be friends with, right? So like,
that's how I pick my friends, the HR people.
Yeah, HR decides who you can be friends with. So there's a little bit more to that, and we need to change our whole environment to make remote work sustainable. And that means like our chairman is John Reardon. He was chairman of Shopify International, but one of the reasons he joined us back in 2018 was they could create jobs in rural Ireland, but unless we had communities to sustain them, those jobs wouldn't stay. Like you go mental working from home all the time, and who do you meet that? Like you need to have social interaction. So absolutely.
As someone who's worked remotely for nearly 15 years, I 100% agree. You do need the connection, and I used to connect in with different things. When my son was in his local primary school, I was on the PTA, I was doing stuff because that was my way of connecting in with the community 10 years ago so that I wouldn't go crazy. What are other barriers are you kind of seeing other than the community piece? Like for me, I think the infrastructure is really important, and that's an area I think government could and should invest in. I saw an interesting thing on RTE about those people who moved to a remote island, and it was one of the ones in Donegal, and it had just gotten had just gotten like fibre or something like that, and they were getting faster broadband than in their apartment in Temple Bar. What's your kind of take on the infrastructure investment?
So if you look at what we need to make remote work, you've got the basics, which is hubs and connectivity. We're doing quite well there, investing quite a lot, 100 million in that. What we need now is soft supports on top of that. So that is training programs. Yeah. So eBay would say that Ireland doesn't have a remote ready workforce yet, right? So we need to solve for that. Now we run 2 free training programs that are just nationwide. We need to double down on that even more. And then we need that ecosystem then to support that all. So for me, from my perspective, the infrastructure side, it's like building a bunch of buildings and then just being like, well, sure, people will come. Like,
build them and they shall come.
It's not necessarily how stuff happens. We need to have.
It's not how humans work.
No, not really. Armore was a great point. I mean, like they've got a population around 400 people. 4,000 people applied to move that time. Wow. Yeah.
That's crazy. So, I just saw the short clip, but it was very interesting.
Yeah, and at Valentia Island we run a thing called Town Tasters. So for us, communities use remote work for one of 3 things: solve for underemployment, bring people together, or relocation. Valentia Island chapter lead down there, Conor O'Connell, got 2 families to move, which prevented the school from closing. If the school closes, you're not going to get it back open. But if you keep it open, you can move on. So all of those kind of things are really, really critical.
That's amazing, and it's trying to share those stories, those little anecdotes. I think, great. Any last plug for the event next week?
Come, it'll be the least boring conference you've ever been to. It's our first year. You're just going to have to believe me for this one. Believe me, huh?
It's going to be absolutely great crack.
Yeah, it will be. It will be. And it's a big part of how we change Ireland and how we make remote work for profit, people and planet, and it will inform our strategy and actions for the next couple of years. So come along.
All right, great. Thanks very much, guys. We will see you next week.